Something new, highly flavored, curry the night before, not a good idea.
Cheese. Just Paula's laughing. She knows I hate cheese.
Welcome to the food chain from the BBC World Service. I'm Ruth Alexander. More people are running marathons than ever before. So today we're finding out what you should eat to run one well. Joining me is one of the most successful marathon runners of all time, Britain's Paula Radcliffe, who held the women's world record for 16 years from 2003.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Also with us is Steve Cram, the former British world champion middle distance runner, now working as a coach and commentator.
Hi there. Yeah, great to be here.
And Valentine Trau, performance director of the DSM Firmenich running team. Valentine manages the performance programs for some of the sport's biggest athletes, including Kenyan marathon running legend Eliud Kipchoge.
Hello, thanks a lot for having me.
Let's warm up with a quick fire question round first of all. On race day, what matters more, super shoes or super nutrition?
I'm going to trump that with super training.
And Steve?
Ah man, you can't. That's a bit binary, isn't it? Shoes are yeah. I think if we were looking at let's just kind of go with marathon running generally. Then yeah, you got to be fueled properly if you want to get to the other end. I think whether your shoes ain't going to help you if you've got no fuel.
I agree with Steve. Without fueling, you don't get to the finish line. Barefoot, you can get to the finish line, but that's quite a challenge. So I would go for both.
What's the best mid-race fuel, gels or real food?
Oh, wow. It's very hard to run at elite level and take on real food during a marathon. So during a marathon, I would go, it's got to be gels or liquid carbohydrate getting into your system quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't mind a bacon butty occasionally, or a burger or something. I have eaten real foods when I did the Comrades Marathon, which is an ultra, 55 miles or whatever it is, and people give you baked potatoes and things like that. But that was more a stop for a rest as well. So yeah, but no, in a marathon normally, yeah, taking on gels or something similar.
Yes, totally agree. The real food in a marathon maybe better to stay a little bit away from and go for anything fluid or gels. And most important, something that you know very well and that is working for you.
How many gels is too many?
Oh, well, I would recommend having prepared and trained, trying the gels hand beforehand. I don't think if you've well fueled before the race that you need to be taking them in the first hour or so. After that, generally every 5 kilometers, so it depends which pace you're running at. More than that, it's too many to carry and it's not going to make much difference.
I would say, look, it's a bit of a the question is depends how long you're out there, doesn't it? So you can't say how many gels because Paula's out there for just over 2 hours and someone's going to be out there for 6 hours. So, it's about the duration and the energy people are using and how much refueling and rehydrating they need to do. 100% depends on how long you're out there. So I don't think there's an answer really that says, this amount is right and it could be double that for somebody who's out there for 2, 3 times as long.
Is it ever okay to try something new on race day?
No.
Oh, that's an easy one. No.
Valentine?
No, absolutely not.
Caffeine, performance booster or risky gamble?
Risky gamble if you haven't tried it before. If you've tried it in training and your body knows what's coming and you know what the effects are going to be, then yeah, I think if it works for you, you should do it. If it doesn't work for you, you'll know about that.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of things that you could consider to be performance enhancing if they make you perform better, and they're usually things that you're used to using and used to taking, and how your body reacts. So yeah, caffeine comes into that category, absolutely, either before or even during. So a lot of elite runners use caffeine in all sorts of different ways and different distances, but it's part of your daily life, then yeah, go for it.
I think caffeine can help for every marathon runner as long as you've tried it before, and it can give you a little bit energetic feeling. So yes, can help.
One food you'd absolutely avoid before a marathon?
Something new, highly flavored, curry the night before, not a good idea.
Cheese. Just Paula's laughing. She knows I hate cheese.
Has
So
nothing to do with a marathon.
I know that, but just avoid it. Just avoid cheese generally.
I think anything extremely spicy or that makes your system work very hard, stay away from it.
Paula, how key to your success do you think what you ate was?
I think it did play a crucial role. And honestly, I think that the balanced upbringing that my parents gave me, I'm immensely grateful for because I never even knew what was happening. It was just normal for me to eat well in the training during the training cycle, to get enough sleep, to give all of the kind of building blocks to your body that you needed, and then to have a sensible attitude around food. And I think working with a nutritionist into my first marathon did give me a kind of a little bit of a, not a head start, but certainly a boost in understanding how important it was to load with the glycogen. The human body can only get to 20 miles on basically what it's got within it. So you need to preload as much as possible. And it's in the muscles that that's going to go. So if you don't have enough muscle strength, there's nowhere to store the glycogen. You need to drink enough liquid with that to get the glycogen in there. And then within the race, you need to be fueling with something that you've practiced in training and keeping that fuel system topped up to enable you to keep running at maximum speed for the marathon all the way through. So the important things are the training and the preparation, the mental side of it. But if you've done all of that and you haven't fueled, you're still not going to run as well as you're capable of doing.
Valentine, do you, with all the elite athletes you work with, do you find that everybody absolutely understands like how important diet is to success?
We work with athletes from all over the world and know that not everybody is well known when it comes to the diet. On the other hand, most of them come from a background that they have already in a natural way an upbringing that is quite healthy and do most of the things right. If I look into our own team, something that where we had to make a change is that most of the athletes, when it comes to the lunch, when it comes to the dinner, everything was quite okay. When it came to the breakfast, it was more or less not existing, and that was something that we had to make a small change and to give some explanation why it is important. But in general, I think most of the athletes are doing already in a natural way most of the things quite right.
Steve, you've done a lot for grassroots sports and community participation. Do you think that even the most casual runner, someone who's never going to have a gold medal around their neck, can take something from the nutrition performance regimes of elite athletes?
Yeah, you know, it's one of the things we do. We try to say to people, look, if the elites do this, this is something you should think about. I think within reason, though, you know, what you don't want people to do is to kind of overthink things. The more simple you can keep your people's training and their approach, and it's a bit like what Paula said, you want that kind of level-headed approach most of the time. You have to remember that the elites are sometimes looking for, you know, 30 seconds over a marathon, you know, one second a mile. They're looking for that level of improvement. And that might well come from a slight change to their fueling during the race, for instance. So whereas with the vast majority of people, you're just trying to keep them to, and it's really, you're right though, to get them to understand. I think it was a good question to Valentine, so do people understand? So one of the things, a bit like Paula said, you know, if you're going to go on a journey in your car, you kind of want the tank to be full before you set off. And you need to understand where are you going to refuel, you know, because otherwise somewhere on that journey you're going to run out of petrol. And most people understand that. Now, when you put it in those, you look for nice, simple ways for people to understand what they need to do. And I think after that, you then leave it up to some personal choices. And look, we're answering questions here about, you know, would you ever try something in a marathon you've never tried before? Well, look, there are lots of people who've never run a marathon before. So when they're doing it for the first time, inevitably they're passing a feed station in a marathon that might have a product they haven't used before. So yeah, you know, it's better that they do something like that rather than not have anything. because the elite runners make their own drinks, they make their own, they know what they're going to be using to refuel. Whereas for the vast majority of people, they will have to use what's on the route, what's provided by the event organizers. So there's a bit of give and take there, but as long as they understand the principles, and as long as they, kind of think that refueling is a big part of their performance, then it should be okay.
Paula, when you were training, like how many hours were you running over how many days, and what were you eating to make sure your body could endure that?
Oh, wow. Well, I was training I do 7 days on, 1 day off. So for 7 days, I would run twice a day on 5 of those days and once a day, and the longer runs kind of spread out within that. So probably days 4 and 7. And that would be a hard session 4 times a week, and recovery runs, just steady runs the rest of the time. I wouldn't be fueling in all of those, but obviously in the hard workouts, I would be practicing. So I would be practicing drinking, because I mostly used carbohydrates. So during my career, the improvement in gels hadn't really happened. So gels weren't as reliable for me to get carbohydrates and energy into my system as the drinks. And I was fortunate, elites can pick up the drinks every 5 kilometers, and we pre-mix those in advance and hand those in. So everything that would be in my drink on marathon day would be in the drink that I was using at track sessions, at road workouts, not just for steady runs, they would just be done without. But during the long run, particularly, I would be practicing the fuel regime that I would put into place in the marathon itself, minus, of course, the carb loading from the Thursday night for a Sunday race, which is also important. And then just eating normally, probably a lot by normal standards around that, because of the amount of energy that I was expending, and sleeping more as well.
Do athletes have to think very carefully about, what proportion of protein they're eating in their meals, what proportion of carbohydrates and so on? Do you really have to follow a detailed plan?
What we try to do is that we build that in the daily routine, so that it doesn't become something. Eating should also be joy and something that they like to do, and if it becomes something extremely measured and a must, it can create also an atmosphere that isn't so positive towards the marathon. So what we try to do is to take the athlete as the starting point, see what are his habits, what is in the culture, where the athlete is coming from, and then slowly by slowly make some twists that are in the daily routine are integrated, so that when he comes to the marathon, that everything is already there.
Paula, you said that you ate a lot by normal standards. Like, how much does a marathon runner have to eat?
There are 2 ways to look at it, and I think, going back to what Steve said, it depends what level you're trying to look at. You can measure everything out carefully. That takes a lot of time. And to be honest, it's verging on the obsessive, and I'm not sure it's fully necessary. What you do need to make sure is that the normal kind of recovery parameters. So if you're at a healthy weight when you start training, and then you're losing weight and you're losing performance as well, your times aren't getting faster, that's not going in a good direction. So you're clearly not putting in as much as being expended. So you can go as simple as, when you're hungry, just keep eating. That doesn't always work, because sometimes when you get into an overtired cycle, kind of hunger goes, and that signal goes. I would generally say that if your training is improving, you're sleeping well, things like recovery, pulse, and quality of sleep is in a good place, then you're in the right place. And as long as you're including a balanced diet with, as you said, some protein, I wouldn't say you have to go really obsessive about measuring the amount out, but there needs to be a healthy amount of protein. People think about the carbohydrates for something like the marathon, but every time you train, you are causing slight muscle damage, and the only way that the body builds on that and repairs and gets better is by putting enough of the other building blocks in terms of protein and all the vitamins and minerals. And you need to keep your body healthy with enough fruit and vegetables and fiber in there as well. So I would just go for balanced, healthy fueling, and rather than obsessing about the amounts of food that you're putting in and how it breaks down, think about the fact that after a training session, you have that 20 to 30 minute window which is the best time for your body to take in the nutrients and use them in the right way to capitalize and make the most of that training effect. So rather concentrate on eating and refueling and rehydrating quickly after training and after racing than the exact amounts of everything.
And in the crucial few days before a big race, what should you be eating? And, people talk about carb loading. What is that? What does that look like?
I think normally, maybe from Thursday evening onwards, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the marathon. You start eating really good breakfast, lunch, dinner. What does it look like? Sometimes you're traveling to another city. You're in a hotel. Try to eat things that you're used to. Don't start suddenly eating fish if you never eat fish, or all sorts of things. So just try to stick as close as possible to what your body is used to eat, and then fuel properly the days before. Is it a must to the exact amounts? No, I totally agree with Paula. Just make sure that you're in a good way on the starting line, feeling well, feed it well, and you're ready to go.
And Paula, what did carb loading look like for you? I mean, what were you eating?
To be honest, I predominantly focused on carb loading in the form of drink form, because I guess I understood that you need to get that glycogen into your muscles. You need water to be able to do that. So if they were mixed in, I didn't get the bloated feeling of having double portions of pasta from Thursday night. So I preferred to kind of eat normally, perhaps with a little bit more of a slant on carbohydrates, and certainly more plainly than I would normally do. So less kind of rich sauces, spices, flavorings that you would add in. Perhaps the rest of the time I would go a lot more simple and a lot safer in the couple of days before the marathon. As Valentin said, things that are tried and tested that work for you. And I would take an extra measured amount of carbohydrate that I knew was in a 500 milliliter bottle on the Thursday night, 2 on the Friday, 2 on the Saturday, 1 on the Sunday morning. And then I would still be drinking on one all the way through, warm up into the race, and then getting that every 5 kilometers in the race as well.
And on the morning of a big race, what would you have for breakfast? Was it always the same thing?
It was for me because it was tried and tested in training again. So it was basically porridge made with water, not with milk, just because I have a slight lactose intolerance. Anyone else could have milk. And I would have some honey in there, some chopped up banana. I would have like I said, a carbohydrate drink alongside it, a cup of coffee at that point as well, and maybe a couple of squares of dark chocolate, because that's what I do in training and it works.
That sounds like a very nice breakfast for anyone. Steve, during a race, like spectators will sometimes put out food on tables or hold food out. Do you advise runners to take from a spectator?
I have, so I can't say no. I mean, obviously, elites are never going to do anything like that, and anyone trying to kind of follow a proper program and running, probably good club runners and the rest of it. Look, would you take a sweet from somebody offered it to you on the train or a bus? I don't know. If you're that sort of person, then yeah. But look, as I said, I think there's a danger that we over-egg this a little bit for the average runner. Fuel is important. I think it's also important that if people have a little bit of knowledge, I mean, even Paula's thing there about a breakfast, honey and a banana, they are different types of carbohydrate kind of thing. You've got that the sweetness of honey. You got fast. Some carbohydrates get into the system quicker. So you've got the sugary things, which is often you do want that quick hit. You do need that quick hit. So if someone's offering you some jelly babies on the route, get them down your neck. It's not a problem. They're good. That they'll give you that. They'll get into your system fairly quickly. We all get that sugar high, don't we, when we've had something of that nature. Let's say, for instance, an unripened banana, though, a more greeny banana, that's got a much slower carbohydrate release and it's going to take more time. So, we'll all know, I mean, we all use bananas as a good example. You allow a banana to go overripe and it gets soft and squishy and very sweet, whereas you have it when it's not ripe, it's very starchy and it's still carbohydrate, but it changes. So understanding some of those things is quite helpful as well. So, but I'd say generally speaking, I have accepted jelly beans from other runners, you know, 3-4 hours into something where I'm thinking, oh, I really need something. So yeah, I don't think it's too much of a problem.
What are the common mistakes that marathon runners make around food and drink?
If I can say something is maybe sorry, Steve, then I give to you. But I think the mistake made mostly in marathons is that they do new things. That and it can be, it's not only fueling, it can be even shoes or whatever. They suddenly they hear all sorts of things. They get anxious. It's close to the marathon. They want to get 5 minutes faster or 10 minutes faster because then I break 4 hours or I break 3 hours or and then you start doing something that you have never done before.
Paula, have you ever made a mistake?
Oh God. Nutrition wise. Gosh. I've had to deal with a mistake nutrition wise, in terms of the fact that I think it was the first time that I ran in New York City Marathon. My refreshment, my carbohydrate drink was not on the first table. So I had to then make a decision. Do I do something untried and take one of the drinks that are provided on the course, as Steve said, that will give me some carbohydrates, but it's not something that I've tried and practiced in training, or do I just go without? And I chose to just use one of the drinks that was available because I felt that need for energy, particularly given that in New York it was every 5 miles, not every 5K, that you were given your refreshment drink. I felt that I needed to get it. Luckily, it wasn't a mistake and it was okay. I think going back to the biggest mistake that athletes make, to be honest, in the marathon, it's starting too fast. It's trying to run too quickly in the first half of the race. If you're looking at most mass participants, and when they get it wrong the first time, it's because they've misjudged it and gone off too quickly.
Steve, what would you say the most common mistake amateur runners tend to make around nutrition?
Yeah, I think Valentin touched on it. You know, they'll. It's very easy particularly if you're doing your first marathon, is to get down to wherever it is and suddenly see what people are doing and think, oh, I should do that, or you know, I'm kind of copying what others are doing. And I think, well, okay, so the number one I see quite regularly is it's quite a social thing these days, and you know, I've heard countless stories of people getting down to the London Marathon. They're so excited. They go out with their friends for some dinner. The wine gets ordered, a couple of beers, and about mile 21, they're all regretting kind of having had a few drinks the night before type thing. So obviously avoid alcohol. You know, we want you to have fun and everything, but that just kind of is going to make things a little bit difficult for you the next day. And yeah, don't do anything you're out of the ordinary that even if it looks like somebody else is doing it, it might not be for you. So you'll very much try and stick to what you've done. I think the other thing is just, we've talked a lot about food, but we have to remember hydration is part of food. You know, and a lot of marathons these days are dealing with with warmer weather, even if they're autumn marathons or spring marathons, we're all getting in warmer climates. So you know, you must be well hydrated before you start as well, you know, and that starts the day before. It doesn't start, you know, half an hour before the race starts. You've got to try and get to the start line well hydrated. So I'd say that those are kind of the big mistakes that the average punters make.
And just a very quick question. And when the race is over, what do you eat first?
Whatever you want, absolutely anything goes. At the end of the marathon, you've worked really hard. Whatever's got you through that last 10 kilometers when you've been really trying to find reasons to keep going and reasons to keep your body pushing you on. If you've been dreaming of donuts, if you've been dreaming of ice cream, whatever you can get your hands on as soon as you cross the finish line. It's one of my biggest memories after my first marathon. I honestly felt like I could eat what I wanted for a week, and I was just hungry all the time. Your body has really achieved something, so reward it and fuel it back up.
Valentin, what does Eliud Kipchoge eat when he's finished a marathon?
Eliud is not somebody who is celebrating with all sorts of foods or drinks. So he's, even after the marathon, he might eat sometimes some fries and a burger, but he can even do with a normal pasta that he's always doing. And to come back on the recovery and after the marathon, maybe when you're a cyclist and you're in the Tour de France, then it's extremely important to do immediately the right thing after the finish line. But in the marathon, your next marathon is maybe 6 months later. So it's not so important to recover extremely fast and just celebrate the moment.
You really can just enjoy your donuts. Just a final word of advice. If somebody is preparing to run a marathon, what one tip would you each give them for their diet?
I guess I'll start off. I would just say that trust in your training and remember that your body can achieve incredible things, but you have to fuel it. So put as much energy and attention into your diet, particularly in the couple of days and the morning of the race, and then hopefully you'll get the results you deserve out of it.
Valentin.
In general life, when you are preparing, eating a healthy, have a healthy lifestyle with natural food, and try the breakfast that you're planning to take on marathon day. Try it out a couple of times before, so because that one is maybe not so much attention on before, but it's important. So try that one out in the months leading up to the race.
Have a think about it, which might start from the day before, breakfast, as Valentin was saying there, and then on the route, so that you're not just randomly taking things on board and kind of not quite know. Try and have a bit of a plan in the same way that you're sort of probably going to plan the pace that you're going to run, then have a plan for what am I going to drink and eat and when am I going to do that, and how much am I going to do. So just try and get a bit of a plan put together and try and stick to it.
Well, thank you very much to all my guests. Paula Radcliffe.
Goodbye.
Steve Cram.
Goodbye.
And Valentin Trau.
And goodbye.
And thanks to you for watching. The Food Chain is available every week as an audio podcast. You can listen to it wherever you find your BBC podcasts. Just search for The Food Chain.